When fate decides to teach us a lesson, it often clouds our judgment, leaving us blind and deaf to reality. And oh, how the clarity of our foolishness always dawns much later. In my younger sister's family, a new chapter began with the birth of her daughter. For a whole week, my little sister was in overdrive, darting around like her hair was on fire, trying to nail every detail of the christening. Honestly, I couldn't keep track of how many venues she visited, or how many kefs she scrutinized in her whirlwind of planning. But finally the big day arrived. To my surprise, the gathering was teeming with faces I'd never laid eyes on before. Shrugging it off, I chalked it up to the likelihood that these were friends of my sister's husband, people I just hadn't had the chance to meet yet. With that, I carried on enjoying the festivities. Late in the afternoon, I stepped outside for a quick smoke, and that's when I saw her. She was sitting quietly on a bench, her eyes lost in the stars above. Her black hair cascaded down her back and over her shoulders, giving her an almost otherworldly aura. In my mind's eye, she transformed into a mythical nymph, ethereal and untouchable. When she sensed my gaze and turned to face me, I was captivated. Her deep dark eyes pulled me in like an endless abyss. Was it madness? Was it enchantment? I couldn't tell. What I did know was that I couldn't just stand there. Summoning my courage, I walked over, introduced myself, and without much hesitation, asked her on a date. She laughed at my boldness, but to my delight said yes. As it turned out, that first date was just the beginning. One meeting led to another, and within a month, I found myself asking Lilia to move in with me. But her answer wasn't what I expected. She refused, explaining that she was a migrant from Moldova and didn't yet have a home of her own here. How could I just jump into cohabitation like that? She said, her voice steady but firm. Convincing her to hear me out was no easy feat. I had no ulterior motives. I just couldn't imagine life without her anymore. I craved the simplicity of waking up next to her, sharing a home, building something together. In my flustered state, I blurted out a love confession and, to top it off, proposed. To my immense relief, her resistance softened. She smiled, oh, that smile, and agreed. Living together brought with it a whirlwind of discoveries. I found out that Lilia came to Moscow with a dream, become a model. Once she made a name for herself, she hoped to become an actress. Her days were full. She spent hours perfecting her makeup, choosing outfits, chatting with photographers, and going to photo shoots. My beauty was tireless, single-minded, and absolutely mesmerizing. The photos kept piling up, one glamorous shot after another, yet they seemed to lead nowhere. But I was head over heels in love and blissfully blind to the reality that, despite all her efforts, Lilia hadn't landed a single offer from any potential employers. Instead, her so-called preparations for a dream career were draining our finances with no tangible outcome. Meanwhile, she was also neck-deep in planning our wedding. Lilia had her heart set on a romantic ceremony by the sea, just the two of us, with no one else around. She talked about it constantly, spinning a picture-perfect image of our future together. Everyone around her pretended to be thrilled about her plans, but any suggestion of alternatives was met with a firm and non-negotiable no. Every evening, she would call her family back home and chat away in Moldovan for an hour, sometimes more. Well, they must have a strong bond, I thought, chalking it up to her tight-knit family dynamic. The date was set, and I eagerly invited my family and close friends. When I called my sister to extend the invitation to her and her husband, she initially seemed thrilled. But as soon as I mentioned Lilia's name, her tone shifted. "Wait a second," she said cautiously. Isn't that the woman you were chatting with at the christening? When I confirmed, she hesitated, then dropped a bombshell that shattered my world. Little brother, she began carefully, you can't marry her. I know her sister, and she told me something you need to hear. Lilia is already married, and she has a young son back home. It was a good thing I was sitting down, because her words hit me like a freight train. My mind reeled as I tried to make sense of what she'd just said. How could this be? I'd seen her passport myself. There were no signs of anything like that. Desperate for answers, I begged my sister to reach out to her friend and get Lilia's mother's phone number. Half an hour later, I made the call, my hands trembling. An older woman answered, speaking in a language I couldn't fully understand. I introduced myself as politely as I could and asked if she knew Lilia Ivanesa, the woman I was supposed to marry in just a week. What's this about? The woman asked, her voice puzzled. Young man, you're mistaken. My daughter has a common-law husband and a little son. She works at a store here and has been gathering documents because they plan to move soon. I hung up the phone, my mind racing and heart pounding. By the time Lilia came home, glowing from another trip to the salon, I was struggling to keep it together. But the question burned inside me, demanding an answer. I had to know. Can you tell me something? I began, trying to sound calm. Why haven't you invited your family to the wedding? She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. I've already explained, she said with a casual shrug. I don't want them there. We don't have enough money for their tickets. Where would they stay? What would I feed them? I paused for a moment, letting her words linger before I delivered mine. Or is it because you already have a husband, and a son you conveniently forgot about? Her face froze, then contorted into something I'd never seen before. Pure fury. She exploded, her voice rising to a fever pitch. You had no right, she screamed. No right to call my mom. This is my life, and it's none of your business. Her anger only confirmed everything I had feared. My chest felt tight, but I forced myself to remain silent. Without a word, I called a taxi, packed her suitcase, and wheeled it to the door. Turning to face her one last time, I met her glare with a calmness I didn't feel. Good luck, I said quietly. And with that, she was gone.